lost in this conversation. Let's turn this thing on and see if it's in tune. Welcome. My name is Leland, and this is Lost in Conversation. So this is the first episode in what I envision being a series of recorded, edited conversations, each on a specific topic. The idea for this podcast evolved out of my Substack newsletter, which I call Lost in America. But before we jump into today's conversation, I thought I should provide you with a bit of background on why I'm doing this. These days, I'm a photographer and printmaker based in Montana. My work focuses on landscapes of the American West, where the histories of land and people are deeply interwoven. Using large format cameras and a range of historical, alternative, and mechanical printmaking techniques, I try to create images that explore the convergence of natural forces and human presence across the landscape. My work is very solitary, which means I don't get a lot of conversation, unless you count talking to myself, which I do a lot. So I envisioned this podcast, first and foremost, as an opportunity to have interesting conversations with interesting people. Before I really had my idea dialed in, I reached out to Eric. Some of you might know Eric as Eric Meow. Some of you maybe know him as Conspiracy of Cartographers. Some of you may not know him at all, in which case I hope this is a worthy introduction. But I asked Eric if he'd help me test my idea with a conversation recorded on the topic of wandering. A few years ago, during COVID times, Eric and his podcasting partner Vanya interviewed me for their film photography podcast, All Through a Lens. Eric and I share an interest in film photography, and our geographic areas of interest at times overlap. And I know Eric is savvy to the process of starting something new like this, so I appreciate his willingness to help an aimless friend in need. All I asked was that he discuss the topic of wandering, a term I often get applied to my travels in search of photographic subjects, if not a term that generally describes my approach to life. With regards to my photography, at least, I don't know if I like the aimlessness the word wandering implies. Even though I do tend to explore an area in a somewhat unstructured way, I generally don't go to places that I've not done some research or preparation to scope out beforehand. Really, the only time I deviate from that is when I'm en route to a location and I see something interesting, which is where I find all sorts of great subjects. But I do plan my routes carefully, which helps me not revisit the same places over and over again. And it allows me to have clear objectives about where I'm going and what I'm trying to photograph. To me, that's not really wandering. But anyway, this is supposed to be a conversation. So, Eric, please introduce yourself.
I am Eric, going by Eric J. Meow. Some folks know me as Conspiracy of Cartographers on Instagram and various other places. I am a former co-host of All Through a Lens podcast. Film photographer and traveler and just a normal guy, really.
What are your thoughts on wandering?
It skims the surface of what happens. It originally means aimless, wandering, but it means aimless going about here and there without a purpose.
Do you feel aimless when you're out doing this? Oh yeah, okay. Well then maybe it's the right word.
Sometimes it is definitely the right word sometimes. It did start to mean something like straying from a certain path, which heavily implies like you had a certain path and then you just kind of went away from it. And that's how I see it. Even though sometimes that straying is a little more structured, but that's mostly due to us having world maps in our pockets at all times.
There's something about being lost that I wish I experienced more often. I've always got a sense of where I am and how to find my way out. Even when I, turn off my phone, I'm always sort of feel like it's just there and I can find my way. So getting lost is something I miss. I used to get lost a lot. I mean, I spent a lot of my youth lost, just wandering around, exploring.
Yeah, before Google Maps, we getting lost was sometimes too easy.
Yeah.
Now, the only time I ever get lost is hiking, and it's a little more terrifying than getting lost in a car on like a highway or road.
Right.
So that's maybe a little different. But yeah, I'd rather I have a great sense of direction. So like you said, when you turn your phone off, I can still pretty much find my way where I'm going.
Yeah.
I've been out there long enough to know that this kind of road leads to this town, or even oh, this ridge line will lead towards a highway, or you can see a cut in the mountain. There must be a road there, or something like that.
You and I do fairly similar things, it would appear. We spend a lot of time when we're out in the world looking for something. We're never really sure what it is until we get back and develop our film.
Well, we're never sure what we find then, but I do. I'm meticulous at trip planning, down to the specific roads. And if there is a passable way to get to a certain place and there isn't a road there, there's a line that I've drawn on a map, a digital map, that will get me there. I know exactly where I want to be every step of the way. Everything I want to see has a pin drop. It's well researched. I am not fun to travel with because of this. There's spontaneity in what I do, but none of it is planned,
Mhm.
which is great for spontaneousness. But I do get a little itchy when I do stray off, when I do wander.
Do you have a set idea of what you're looking for when you set out usually? Are you like, I'm gonna do a zine or a book about this, and I'm gonna add a bunch of images to this project that I started 10 years ago, but you have a
Now,
clear idea?
sometimes with I do a cemetery project. Um, and that is photographing small abandoned pioneer cemeteries. And so my maps now have literally hundreds of dots all over them, and all of those dots are cemeteries. All the blue ones with a little cemetery symbol on them are cemeteries. And that was supposed to end last year. And so my idea was I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna publish something, a book, a big book with I had all these ideas. And then two things happen. One is the main thing is that I really like photographing cemeteries, and when you end a project, your instinct is to not look back and like I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so I decided, no, I I'm just going to keep doing this, but to uh, quote unquote finance it, using that term very loosely and irresponsibly. I'm going to release books periodically about cemeteries.
Q
Uh,
volume 2, Q volume 3, right?
Basically, yeah. If I were smart, I would do, abandoned cemeteries of Kansas and sell that all over the tourist places in Kansas, or abandoned cemeteries of Oregon, and see about that. But I'm not that smart or that savvy, so I'm not going to do that. This will just be random ish cemetery photos with their stories. But I don't want it to end. So I always have a purpose until I find a new purpose or run out of cemeteries, I guess. How I photograph is generally uh, long exposures, at least a second or longer. And so I like to get a little bit of motion from the grasses in there because while a lot of large format photographers like everything to be very still, that's great. I don't. I was raised on Civil War photography, and so everything was constantly moving, and so that's kind of like, "Oh, I wanna do that." And so when I take a photo of something, I like there to be a little bit of movement going on in it. Because nature moves. There's wind, especially on the prairie. There's wind, a lot of wind, and I like to show that. But again, not for everybody. Which is also
Tell me a little bit about your setup. What when you go out, what do you're shooting 4x5.
Yeah.
Is that your main?
Yeah, well, generally it has been. For cemeteries, only 4x5. And for that, X-ray film.
Mhm.
X-ray film is the kind that I use is what's known as orthochromatic, which only captures, in my case, only captures blue. There are some that capture blue and green, but I found that there was a little bit of interference with the red light in the darkroom. Because that was my fault. I was using the wrong red light. But still, blue. It only captures blues, which is challenging to shoot landscape with something that's going to blow out the sky every single time you use it. So what I do is I have a gradient ND filter that cuts the sky essentially by 3 stops, fading down into the land. If your horizon is boring and in the center, into the land, fades it away. So my skies are dark because of this. And the grass
use other filters ever? Or are you
well, I
shooting?
can't with only blue. There's nothing I can really do. There's nothing to filter out.
Right. I know.
If I'm shooting like fomapan, I'll throw on a red filter, which is sort of the opposite of X-ray at that point. I'm shooting the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I'll often do one shot of fomapan with a red filter, heavy red filter on it, and then one shot with X-ray film. And you kind of get like an opposite photo, not a negative, but opposite. It's unimportant.
Different things are highlight and different things are dark. Yeah. You actually interviewed me at one point about X-ray because I use a lot of it as well.
Yeah.
And I do have neutral density filters that I have used for sky, but generally, since what I mostly do now is use these to make photogravure plates, I just rely on what's called plate tone, where I don't rub all the ink off of the blown
Oh
out,
yeah, right.
and it makes it sort of appear that there might be something going on there. But so you are generally shooting slowly, you're working carefully, you're what a good day, what are you shooting? Like 10, 12?
A good day is 50, like a really good day. That's like 7 or 8 really good cemeteries.
Wow.
And that's things lining up that wouldn't normally line up. So a good day is 50. A normal day is 25, 30.
Yeah.
And that's
Wow.
just balls to the wall cemeteries.
You make me look so unproductive.
Well, and I don't have to rely on anything.
I'll spend 8 hours taking pictures and get 3 photographs.
No, I couldn't. I mean, I could do that, and I've done that.
Yeah.
It's just, well, I travel long distances to do this. Like a day trip for me can be 4 hours out and 4 hours back. Not including all of the things I want to see on that day trip.
Right.
So I have to be on the ball.
So you live in Seattle,
I
and
live in Seattle.
Your preferred area close to home is in Eastern Washington.
Yeah, and that's at least 4 hours.
Yeah, so like Douglas County, is that what it is? Or
Douglas County is a big one, yeah. And then I also hit the Palouse area, which is 5 a lot of times, depending where.
Right. And how many road trips do you think you've been able to do normally in a season?
In a season, I will do probably 6 or 7 in the spring, and I'm usually burned out by autumn, so I usually only get 3 or 4 in there. But good about 10. So let's say 10. Right. And sometimes those are overnight. So I will camp. There's a lot of places to camp that I've found. There should be a lot more, but I found a few good places: Douglas County, Adams County, and in the Palouse area. There's 1 or 2. They're kind of stingy out there with that.
And is most of this solo travel?
Almost all of it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't want to subject anybody to this.
right. I'm the same way.
It is challenging. I've traveled with people before, and while there's a lot of benefits to it, companionship and sitting around joking about things and getting nothing done, it's fun, but you also get nothing done.
So let's return to this topic of let's not call it wandering. Let's you sent me a word, wending.
Well, the word wending, like a stream wends its way through the pasture or whatever. It's an older word, but it also spun off from the original word wandering, whatever that was, something in Old English that sounds very like wandering.
Yeah.
Probably not with a W though, with its Old English. I don't know. Anyway, wending, and that is more of like meander is a good word for it. But I do see my traveling as like a stream. There's a set place that I'm going, a set route that I'm going, places I'll be passing by. But like a stream, sometimes I dry up a bit and I stop. If it floods, streams overflow, things go crazy. I have to detour or completely change my plans. There's never been a trip that I've done that I haven't had to make major detours for, and yet I still plan meticulously, knowing that I may not see a chunk of what I'm planning.
Yeah. I like the river analogy a lot. I always photograph a lot of rivers, and
Yeah, you do.
there's always gravity. That's always making it work. So that I like the wending idea because that's
Yeah.
or
It's a very pretentious word to say. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm wending my way across the United States. It's
fortunately we're
truthful.
alone, and there's nobody to say that to, though. You can
Well, if people ask, like on a podcast, they ask,
right.
and you, oh, I'm wending. Like, oh, what's Eric up to? Oh, he's wending his way across Kansas again. I'm like, oh, okay.
I like that though. I think that's a
It,
good way to do Kansas.
yeah. That's my next plan is to wend because I'm not wandering. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I have a set route, many of them.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, 2-3 weeks in Kansas. And so you can't wander aimlessly and get as many good photos. And that's really what it comes down to.
And that's a wrap. Cue the orchestra.